Hey there, everybody. We have another episode here. This one is going to be the third baseman and shortstops. I'm really excited for this one. We have a ton of talent, those two positions. Let's start it off here. We have a lot of shortstops to go over after, so I'll go through them pretty quickly. So Isaac here is a 65 arm, 50 range third baseman. He's got right around a zero zone range on the season. Really solid overall defender with both positions there, second base and third base, can play a decent level. More of a third baseman at this point in his career with the lower range, big arm. But yeah, offensively is where he makes his money. He's a plus hitter with plus avoid K, plus contact, plus running. Really solid base running stealing combination, and has good enough power to get away with double-digit home runs per season. So with that overall profile, he's on pace for almost 4 WAR. Should have a really solid career the next few seasons in his prime there. So I think there's just not a ton of great third basemen. So that actually ranks him right about 10th on the list. There's so hard to play third base and do everything really well. So even though you don't have to hit 30 home runs to be like 3-4 WAR player there, so it's really solid all around profile. I actually put Bobby Witt above him, even though the bat's so much weaker. I thought he should be rewarded for the 2 Gold Glove seasons in a row, probably going on his third this year. Quite the run for a guy. Get 3 in a row at the start of his career. Really solid defensively and athletically. It's just crazy with that 80 base running, 75 stealing. Has almost a 50 bat. It's not terrible, but it's not good at all. With the eye is low. He's probably overproducing, if anything. It doesn't quite look to me like a 95, 90 OPS plus bat, but I guess that base running stats kind of juice up that a little bit, even though he has a lack of power. But still 10 home runs both last season and this season. So it's just a really decent young athletic player that can get his value in different ways. Kind of one of a kind at third base. There isn't really anyone with that kind of profile. Just such a top-notch defensive player and base stealer and base runner. So even though the bat's a little bit weak, he still, for me, comes in at number 9 on this list. Cade Doughty. Got the hockey player mixed up there. Cade Doughty is just another guy who's a really solid all-around player. He's kind of like Isaac, but he's probably just got a tad more oomph in his bat. He's got that 60 gap power, 60 eye combination, even more of an athlete too. Just a really solid player that can play a couple spots in the infield. Could probably train him up to be a 55 second baseman if you wanted in spring training. He's a really good base runner all 3 seasons. The last 3 years, he's had really good UBR ratings. Had 4.5 and 4.2 WAR seasons, and just he's a captain mentality. So it brings a lot of stuff to the table that you like. Just a really good pickup with Colorado there, and still has another year in his rookie contract, making $500,000. So one of the best values in baseball. So he ranks number 8. O'Neal Cruz is number 7. O'Neal Cruz is a monster power bat third baseman. Brings a bunch of tools. At 75 stealing stands out, 75 arm steals out, and 65 power stands out. He has an awesome base stealing ability. With 19 and only 2 caught stealing last season, but this year he hasn't been running at all, which probably brings his value down just a bit. But he's got really big time power and average contact and average eye, and a little bit of plus gap power with the fly ball profile. So it should be, if you look at him, just should be almost over 30 home runs every single season. Had a crazy 43 home run season, 5 WAR, and then a 5.3 WAR season with 19 stolen base and 18 in those 2 seasons. So kind of hit and miss year to year. He's kind of still had almost a 3 WAR season there. So probably his weakest year so far in the last 4 years, but just a really talented dude. Should get a third baseman like that with that kind of arm and athleticism, ability to hit over 30 home runs a year. That you got yourself a really good talent there. So then when you get into the top 6, you get kind of in a different tier. Brian Hayes is a 60 contact plus hitter. He's having a really down season this year, but he's still pretty solid. Even at a 72 WRC plus, he's still a positive WAR player, but should be. This is probably as bad as a season he would have. He's probably more of a 4 to 5 WAR player in most seasons. An absolute amazing defender. Can play shortstop, second base, third base at a really high level. Really good base runner, really good base stealing, plus all across the board offensively. So I think the stadium probably hurts him a little bit. It's tough to hit in Pittsburgh. Just a really good talent, though. I think if you were doing a fantasy draft, he would go pretty high. Kind of guy you could build a team around. That's a really solid all-around player, does everything well. So that actually ranks him, in my opinion, as number 6. Number 5 is Juan Moncada. Juan Moncada is, sorry, I spelled that wrong. Juan Moncada is just a phenomenal baseball player. He is a guy that has every single season in TLG been good. 24, 39, 40, 47, 33, 40, just a crazy amount of home runs with 60 power and 60 contact. Really nasty combination. He's a guy that hits over 230 ISO almost every single season, and he steals some bases, plays some good defense, a really good runner. He's been a little bit of a drop off on defense these last few years. I think he was, a 5-zone range guy for about 4 years in a row there at the start of the TLG, and then he's gotten to about 0 or -1 or 2 the last few seasons. So he went from a plus defender to an average defender, but he still has such a good bat. He still is the 5th best. And I think I went over these rankings quite a bit. 3 to 5 are all really tightly knit. I think you could put Moncada as high as number 3. I think I just went with these other 2 guys ahead of him for the reasons I'll say in a second. I gave Arenado the nod over him at number 4 just because of how much better he is defensively now that Moncada is more of a 45-50 defender. A league average defender is what I was getting at. Sorry, is Arenado's such a plus defender, probably one of the best third baseman defenders ever do it. His offensive stats are getting nerfed quite a bit this year in San Francisco's ballpark, but most seasons, like you can see his Colorado seasons before, he is still a really, really above average offensive player. Has a fly ball, 60 power profile with a high avoid K. He only strikes out 60% of the time, and he has average walks, but he's also a plus gap power guy. So just that's an absolute superstar. He's had an incredible career. So I gave him the nod at number 4. And then Bregman, the nod at number 3. Bregman, I was going back and forth on. I had a little tough time ranking him ahead of those guys with his lack of defense. Now that he's getting older, he's losing some defense. I'd expect him to shift over to first base in the near future. But I just couldn't get past how good his bat is. He's having a big down year with some teams that are really struggling. Houston was really struggling at the start of the year, and then they traded him, and he's on a rebuilding team in Cleveland. So his stats are really neutered this year, but every other season you can see he's just been insane. He's gotten 8.7 WAR, 8, 8, 8. Like every year in TLG, he's been just incredible. Hall of Fame type career. And so even though he's lost some athleticism, that bat just stands out so much with the crazy contact power and eye combination, just plus all across the board. Just an amazing talent, and offensively is just crazy. So I think he should have a bounce back year next season on Cleveland, who should be a lot better now that they've made some really nice moves and have a lot better pitching staff going into next year. I'd expect him to have a big bounce back season, but I could totally understand if you guys think that Arenado and Moncada should be ahead of Bregman. I just figure those 3 to 5 are grouped pretty closely, and I maybe gave Bregman just the nod based on the righty. Such a good righty bat. There's not too many righty bats better than him. But you could really arrange those 3 however you want. I just definitely think they're all tier above Brian Hayes just because the power probably. But you could say with Bregman falling off, you could start to drop him down the list. But I still just gave him a little bit of respect just based on the career he's had and the offense profile he still holds. But definitely a tier drop off on those guys from these top 2. These top 2 are absolute superstars. So Divers is number 2. Raphael Divers is in a monster, absolute immaculate profile. He's got 60 range, 65 arm. In real life, he's like 240 pounds and going to shift to first base soon. Really terrible defender at third base. But in TLG, he's lost 25 pounds. He's down to 215 from like 240. And he kept his range and his speed, and he's just a phenomenal athlete playing third base with an insane bat, one of the best hitters in TLG. He's got a crazy 300 ISO almost every season, 160, 160, 140 OPS plus last 3 years. Crazy power, 30 home runs every season, plus defense. He's still a plus zone range guy with only 3 errors. Really stands out at 60 games at third base. Played a lot of first base too because they try to get Relvis in there in the rotation, keep him fresh. But Devers just an amazing player, and I just had him a notch below. I had to put Fernando Tatis number 1, no bias, even though he's on my team. But his skill set was really similar to Devers offensively. He's just a bit better athlete. They have the same range, but Fernando is more of a shortstop, a little bit more athleticism side to side with a lot higher turn double play and air, and athleticism is just off the charts. He's one of the best players in baseball. He's having a huge down season. He was hitting like 190 and 200 all the way from April, May, and June. Just a huge down year, and he's still only hitting 260. But with 75 contact, the dude should be hitting like 40 points higher than that, and his BABIP's really low. With his athleticism and contact, his BABIP should never be below 300. So that's about as bad a season he would possibly have. Like, obviously not possibly, but you know what I mean. And he's still like a 6 WAR player. So that just shows how insane of a talent Fernando Tatis is, and still just has that like 9-10 WAR potential if he can hit up to that contact. Like that, he could have a year where he hits 320 and hits 40 home runs and plays plus defense, steals 25 bags and gets like 10 WAR. So the talent he has is just so sky high. I gave it his ceiling's just quite a bit higher than Divers, even though Divers is so good. Tatis is just such a different animal. So I think he has a slight nod over there, even though Divers is amazing too. But those two are pretty close also. They're both such an amazing talent, so it doesn't really matter how you rank them. Next on to shortstops. I'll go pretty quick here because we have a lot to cover. I had 17 shortstops. Pretty big jump over the rest. So about half the shortstops in the league are just over half, are so awesome. So I made this list a lot longer for shortstops because there's so many good ones. So I'll go over them quickly here. You wonder why Simmons is so low, but once you see these top 15 guys, you'll understand why I had to put him a little bit lower, just because those other guys are so good. It's not that Simmons is bad at number 17. It's just there's that many good shortstops in TLG right now. So you could make an argument he could be in the top 12 or 13, but that tier is pretty close, all of them. I gave the nod over few of those young guys, though, whose defense have caught up to Simmons, who also have the 45-50 bats with a little more athleticism. But yeah, Simmons is still an incredible talent. Be a really big-time shortstop in almost every team. Just an amazing defender and stuff. So next up is Howard, who has a really similar profile. Pretty much the same guy, like 45 bat, a little bit more power than Andrelton, a little bit more eyes, and he also is about the same defender at this point in his career. Quite a bit more athleticism too. Howard's a freak. He's missed the whole season, but he's a 3-WAR guy, back-to-back years almost, 2.5 3-WAR. Should be even better than that going forward, probably close to 4-WAR, maybe for a season or two, once he recovers from injury, hopefully. Just an awesome talent, one of my favorite prospects the last few years, and moving his way up the ranks. Gabriel Reyes is just above him because his power is a tad better. Has a lot of juice in his bat, 55 gap, 50 power, and a little bit higher range. Reyes could probably be even higher just based on how insane that range is. Such an insane defender. He's on pace for, we had 3.3 last year and 3-WAR this year. Could be even, if he has one of those seasons where he hits like 275 randomly, could just be an incredible player. So those guys are all so good. Reyes is just an insane defender. And speaking of that, the only guy probably better than him in TLG defensively is Reyes. Reyes has one of the best defense profiles I've ever seen. He's a 75 runner with 65 speed, 65 stealing, and he has 80 range, 80 air. So that's just, the zone range is just out of this world. That's a really high range factor, 5.1, 70 or 21 zone range. Only 9 errors too. Just a crazy athlete with a 45 bat, which ain't too shabby at shortstop. Still like league average, I think in real life, it's like 80 or 85 for OPS plus for shortstop. So his bat's right around average there for shortstops, and he's like the best defensive one. So just an amazing profile. I love it there. So next up we have Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis is having another down year on a rebuilding Twins team, but as you can see, he was a 5-WAR player with 14 home runs the year before and 23 bags and 116 WRC plus. Just an amazing talent with plus tools all across the board. He's like pretty much a 5-tool player there with almost 50 home run power, the plus contact, plus runner, plus arm, plus range. Just an amazing talent who obviously in real life is too, went first overall. Just a huge career. He's on pace to have two at only 27 years old, should still be in his prime for another 4 or 5 years. Love that dude's skill set overall. Next up, we have the young gun. Now that we're into number 11, Ernest Ramirez is, number 12, I guess. Oh, sorry, I'm spelling this wrong. ARNYS. Got to learn this guy a little better because we're about to see a lot of him in the next few years. Rodriguez, you might say, is a little bit high, being above some of those more established players, but you'll understand why when you see the power he should have in the next few years. I think he's got one of the highest ceilings in TLG. The ceiling to hit 40 home runs at shortstop, 65 shortstop defense, be a 50 hitter contact-wise. So he should be able to hit 250 with like 40 bombs. In most stadiums. I think Miami will nerf his power a bit. He might be closer to 30 for a few years. But as you can see, he's on pace for 13 home runs, 67 games. Extrapolate over the season, that's close to 25, 30. And that's still being quite a ways away from his power potential. So if it does get up there, he has a chance to be, his ceiling is so high, should be in the top 5. But we'll see. He's not quite there yet. He does have the low work ethic. So we'll see if he gets there. But if he does, he's going to be really special. And he already is like a above average player. It's just a matter of how good he can get. Keep a close eye on him because he's got one of the highest ceilings in all TLG. He's going to be a beast. Next up, we have Ahmed Rosario. So this is actually number 10. Ahmed Rosario just has such an awesome bat that I had to put him above some of those defensive specialists a few spots lower because his defense is still really good, but then he also has quite a bit better bat than those guys. He's got really plus gap power and contact and avoid, so every season he hits really high batting averages, really good bat pips, and then he also has 65 defense, 65 arm, so really good runner too. So just a awesome awesome dude, and high work ethic too. Should be good for a while, even though he's 30. I love his how he's developed in TLG. He's turned into a really good player. So that's obviously why he's up there above some of those guys. But the 45 bats in the similar defensive profiles just a bit better. Next up, we have Machado. This is where you start to get some of the really talented dudes. Machado is, sorry, not Manny Machado. Got to get used to this. Estevan Machado is an 80 shortstop with defense here. Can play a bunch of positions. 75 range, 80 turn, 80 air is just crazy. So he's right up there with Reyes. That defensively is just in such an insane profile. But he's also got a plus bat. That's why he's so much ahead of Arias and Reyes, the Toronto and Cincinnati shortstops we went over. Machado is having quite a bit of a down year, like his compadre there, Haynes. Hayes at third base there, but both those guys are probably way more talented than they've been showing this season. Machado had 4 WAR and 3 WAR seasons and a World Series appearance as a rookie. Probably a big reason Pittsburgh made it there was his improvement at shortstop, and so good defensively there. And they're so good in the middle of the field. Him and Pete Armstrong. It's awesome at 23 years old how good he is already. So we should see huge career out of him with a lot of prime years left and top-notch defense. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if he had a 6 WAR season with like 16 home runs, hit like 278, and had like 20 zone range on defense or something crazy like that. He's that good. So I think he'll be someone to really watch over the next few years. Should turn into a monster. I think you could make an argument he could be ahead of Eduardo Garcia, but since he was having such a down year and Garcia was having such an up year, I did give Garcia the nod over Machado, even though in the future I probably would take Machado over Garcia if it came down to it in a trade or like a fantasy draft scenario. But I had to reward Garcia for this season. He's hitting 275. He's pretty similar offensive stats to like a Ahmed Rosario, but obviously his defense also is an 80 with 70 range and 80 turn, 80 air. Just incredible skill set defensively. He's just so good. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of that star shortstop in Arizona. What's his name there? He's on KC in our game for a couple of years. He's moved around a bunch of places. He's on Washington now. This is going to bug me, so I'm just going to look it up. I was forgetting his name there. Nick Ahmed. That's kind of whose profile here reminds me of quite a bit in real life. But yeah, Garcia is just so nasty. He's got such a crazy skill set that I think, 4.7 WAR pace this season is so awesome. So I had to rank him up there. And then there's quite a bit of a tier jump here between the guys I just went over. Not a huge one, but what you'll notice about this top 7 is their top 7. Number 7 is the difference between the ISO and the bat. So the isolated power here, you got the guys that are over 200 pretty much here. So you got 206 ISO out of him with 65 power. Napier is one of the most talented players in TLG. There's very few, probably just a couple, that have 65 power and 65 range combinations. This guy has just got he's got the plus hit tool too, which is insane for a shortstop with that kind of defense. So this guy's potential to have MVP like seasons. Almost all these guys on the top of the shortstop rankings have the MVP potential because they're all so toolsy. They could easily get 5+ WAR. So Napier could definitely have like a 40 home run season out of nowhere. Maybe he's that talented. So I think he's going to have a monster career here. I'm really excited to see what he does. Pretty obvious, just like a rangy guy with power. Everything else is pretty decent, like 50, 55s. Really good. So next up, we got Wander Franco. Screwed that up. Next up, we got Acosta. I actually have Acosta one spot below Franco. So Acosta is number 6. Acosta is just awesome. He's got 55 home run power, 55 contact. Pretty much like Napier, but just a little bit better athlete, a little bit better defensively. His range actually fell. It's from 70 to 65. Napier actually has 70 range, but not quite as strong as in the other categories. But Acosta is just so good. He's got such a good bat pip and such a good base stealing ability, such a plus bat all across the board. I think him and Napier are pretty freaking close, but I think Napier's ceiling's probably a bit higher just because that power's so high. But Acosta's just so consistent. I reward him for having multiple 4 WAR seasons. Already has 4 4 WAR seasons at this age. Is just incredible. So that's why he got the nod over Napier, who's a little more younger and hasn't proven as much yet. But those two are pretty close. But I really like both those guys. But yeah, Acosta's just such an awesome talent too. Wander Franco's one spot ahead just because his offense is so elite. He's got like 15 higher hit tool. As you can see, his batting average is over 300 multiple seasons. He's got the really good ISO too, almost at 200 here. But defensively, he's really solid. And he's got a lot better base stealing. I don't know what was going on with these seasons, getting caught like 20 and 16 times. But this year, he's 14-3 ratio. He's still a really good base runner. 5, that's so weird. Get caught 20 times, but he's such a good base runner. 5 UBR, but yeah, just such a crazy skill set there. His WARs were 6, 7, and 6, and then it's dipped a little bit these last year when Montreal hasn't been quite as strong. But yeah, he's such an insane bat and such a good defense player and such a good athlete. Sky high ceiling on him, so he got the nod over those Acosta and Napier just because his contact and athleticism is so high and his power is also pretty good. So yeah, now you get a really freakish guy. So Isaac Pacheco is number 4. Pacheco has crazy power and good defense and really good base stealing and base running. He's got the plus I also, walking over 10% of the time. The craziest thing about him is his power jump. He's gone from 163 ISO to 305, almost doubled, which is pretty much unheard of. On pace for 6 WAR this season. Crazy defense, crazy arm, captain mentality, and he's got the leadership, loyalty, low greed. Should be able to get him on a huge contract extension with that high loyalty and low greed. That's like the best combination for that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised they give him the monster 7-year extension in a year or two here. He's just got such an amazing career ahead of him. He could easily shift over to third base as he gets older too. Has that kind of like the Manny Machado type A-Rod / Cal Ripken profile, where he's that big, strong 6'3", 6'4" shortstop with a big arm, big power, but a lot of athleticism. He's really on that level. He's that good. He's in that tier with those guys. It's not kind of hyperbole to kind of mention that. He's that good. So I'm really excited to see what he does in Chicago. He's got a bright future and already one of the best players in baseball. Our Marcelo Meyer actually gets the nod at number 3 over Pacheco just because of his defense is so good and his bat is pretty close. He's got a little bit better contact, a little bit less power than Pacheco, but he's also just such a freak defensively with that 70 range and 80 air combo. It's like a 75 and 80 at shortstop and second base. So the guy can just mash and he can run. He's a line drive hitter with good gap power, hits a lot of doubles and triples, on pace for over 20 home runs most seasons, most likely coming into his prime here. So those guys are both so good. It's kind of splitting hairs. They're both just going to have monster careers here. Marcelo Meyer traded for Mike Trout, just kind of shows his talent level, and he's pretty much put up the same production as Trout since that trade. Pretty crazy talent in real life too. He's going to be a top 10 prospect pretty soon here in real life. I think he's right on the outskirts now on Fangraphs. So those two and coming up here are on another tier. So you get the tier from all those defensive guys from like 16 to 10, and then you get some kind of, or almost like 16 to 8, I'd say would be the same tier. All those guys who went over, all the way from like Andrelton Simmons, Ed Howard, Arias, Reyes, Ahmed Rosario, Royce Lewis, the A-Rod guy in Miami, and then Machado and Eduardo Garcia, all really similar talents. But then you get the next tier, which was the power bats. You get Napier, and then like Wander Franco and Acosta and Pacheco and Myers bats are all really solid, like 55 plus bats with a plus OPS of like 115, 120 potential. But then you get another tier jump, and these are 2 of the top 10 players in baseball. So when you get up here, it's these 2 are really special. Is Luke Leto at number 2. Luke Leto has a .330 batting average. Last year he had 7.1 WAR, and then he came around this year and upped his batting average by 50 points. His power is only 50, and he only has 6 home runs in 100 games this season. That's in a big pitcher's park. He probably would be able to hit close to 20 in most parks over a full season of like 130, 150 games. But his defense is just so incredible. It's just has a little bit less power, and those guys ranked a little bit below him, but he makes up for it in the defense and athleticism and his plus contact tool. I know some scouts like him a lot better than mine too. I know other scouts have him at like 70 eye and 70 contact and stuff. So if it doesn't look as good in my profile, I think some scouts I've seen talk to me about it that he was even better. So some of the other players in the league, just freakish talent. His eye probably is what makes him so special too, because he just that plus contact and the plus eye just gets on base so much. So that guy's a freak. I had him one spot below Plawson. Plawson I just had to put number 1 because the power difference. You go from 6 home runs to like 37 pace. Plawson has the potential to put up some of the best seasons I've ever seen in TLG. He's probably that just shows how freakishly talented he is. His floor is probably like 5 WAR, which is one of the craziest things ever. His ceiling is like 12 WAR. Because if you look at him, the more you look at him, the better he gets. He has 75 infield range with 65 infield arms. So defensively, he's worth a couple WAR alone, just because he's so advanced with that skill set, and then he's such an amazing runner with the contact. He should never have a bat pit below that. 340 is probably as low as it should get. I can't believe it was only 285 last year when he wasn't quite as ceiling for his ratings yet, but I can't imagine him having less than 4 or 5 WAR at any point in the next 10 years, as long as he stays healthy and doesn't regress. He's got plus contact, plus power, plus speed, plus range, all the most important categories. He is in the 99th percentile at almost. Like, he's that good. I just can't. I can't wait to see what he accomplishes. And yeah, his ceiling is just absolutely insane with that contact and home run power. And he's pretty much got the bat of like David Ortiz, and then like the defense of like a Gold Glove shortstop. It's going to be so cool. I imagine this guy's going to win multiple MVPs. He's in the running this year for sure, in the top 5. But yeah, going into once he hits his middle of his prime there, 24, 26, 28 years old, he's just going to be so exciting. I can't wait to see what he does. St. Louis, too, has a lot of bats around him, which makes a big difference, because then he's kind of protected in the lineup, because they'll have a big bat in Spencer Torkelson for a few years sticking around. Miranda should develop into a really big-time, like 40 home run power guy. And then they got, obviously, some big bats in the outfield with a 65 power center fielder. And then they got Pache's injured right now, I guess, but he's in there. So really, big time things on the horizon for him. So that's it for this episode. I had a lot of fun going over these shortstops and third basemen. I'll just show you at the end of the episode here the screenshot, and you can see how talented these two lists are and how beastly these two guys are. So you got those two guys at the top, Poisson and Leto, and then the big, like you said, the tier here from here to here is pretty close. And then third baseman wise, you get the two really elite guys, and then a kind of big bat tier from here to here, and then you got some pretty solid guys from like 5 to 8 here. So really loaded shortstop, as you can see how insane this list is. That even the guys that are 15th and 16th on this list here, Howard and Simmons, are like 3-4 WAR players. So shortstop's just such a loaded position at TLG, especially the fact that age-wise, like you got like, 23 years old, all the same pretty much, and then 23 years old. So all those top 5 right now are like under 24 years old, which is crazy. Franco's like the old dude of that group. It's just insane. I don't think a single guy in this list until Ahmed Rosario or Rice Lewis is over like 25. So it's just it's going to be really cool to see which of these guys kind of make another jump in the next few years, or who falls off. It's just really exciting. I can't remember a shortstop group that talented in quite a while. So that's it for this episode. We'll move on to the outfielders next episode.